Mark, welcome back. Thanks for joining us again
Hey,
on the
Mark.
podcast.
Carlos, Billy, what's up, guys? Freelancer Finance at Confab.
Mark, obviously you had your quarter one update, and we had a lot of questions because, we go deep. So just get ready to go a little bit deep.
Yeah, get it.
We see you ramping up, so that's good to see. You want to tell us what progress, what stage are you at least in terms of ramping up the factory?
Well, we talked in the queue. We're up, building it 4 a day, and with the goal to step up to 6 a day at the beginning of next month, which is basically next week. And it's we just did a factory tour this morning on YouTube, so folks can. There've been a lot of people out there who kind of wanted to see like what is the actual process, what are you guys going through? Just a lot of stuff happening right now. So as Terry would say, the river is flowing, which is the state we have wanted to get through to for a long time, which is where all the parts are showing up at the right spot at the right time, getting assembled into vehicles, and vehicles are getting queued up for delivery. And through the pandemic, we've had just a myriad of supply chain challenges. And that's caused us to go in fits and starts. And then we have had in Q1, we both moved the production line and we're working through the final testing and validation of our next set of battery modules. So we had a big, production shutdown then, and that's just, it's very hard to get that kind of consistent flow. And a lot of the reporting back in terms of quality and so on is much more difficult when you're producing in fits and starts rather than when you've just got a nice consistent flow of parts into assembly into finished product. And so at least in the moment we're in now, we've got a nice good rhythm, and we're getting ready to step it up, and then we're going to sort of keep incrementing that throughout the year. We're targeting 1,000 vehicles this year, which is a 3x of what we did last year.
Yeah.
Which is it is in itself a big step up, and then that lays the foundation for much larger steps in the years following.
In the call, you said when you were asked what was the biggest challenge leading up to production, you said leadership.
Yeah, well, it is when you and there are a host of really difficult challenges in a vehicle company, particularly, vexing engineering and design challenges, quality issues, all the supply chain stuff that has been incredibly complicated due to COVID. But from my perspective, I think the biggest challenge is as the team is growing, is maintaining a very healthy culture and getting everybody to work together very effectively. So really ironing out the interpersonal communication pathways, dialing in every process that we use at the company, not just for building vehicles, but the processes for interacting with customers, how we rent vehicles, how we take care of vehicles, all of that. And that's really kind of, I think of it as like Arcimoto in a box. It's the instruction, the sort of the full instruction manual for the Arcimoto venture and for the ramp facility, which is ultimately what we aim to replicate over and over and over again in as many places as there are markets for Arcimotos, which we think is almost everywhere.
The leadership aspect of it, is that a function of time management on your part? Is it a function of differing opinions among team members, or literally how quickly you guys can communicate?
Anytime you have more than one person, you've got a culture forming. Right. So, and that culture of, how do we do things? What is the Arcimoto way of doing things? Is brought together from people who have come from all different backgrounds, grown up in very different environments, come from different, whether it's cultural or ethnic backgrounds, different places of the world, and then everyone has had very different professional experiences in terms of different organizations that they've worked in. And some organizations have, really toxic workplace cultures, and others have very awesome workplace cultures. And we aim to have a truly exemplary workplace culture in Arcimoto for the purpose of being just a kick-ass organization and solving a giant problem. But that takes really continuous effort to hone in on what is it that we share, what are the values that we share in common in the pursuit of the mission of the company, what are the processes that we follow, and even things like just rules of thumb that I have laid down for the team, as far as just good guidelines for interpersonal communication and self-care, and in terms of like how we approach problem solving together. And what I've noticed is that as we have spent time on this, that it has been just a giant accelerant in terms of what the sort of the output that we produce. And it's been very cool to see that even as the team has grown, the sort of level of productivity of each individual has continued to increase as well. And I think that bodes well for the future.
You have a 4.1 rating on Glassdoor. Arcimoto.
Oh,
this is people from your company will write anonymously, and 83% approve of you and 88% would recommend working at Arcimoto. That's great.
Oh, man, that's the first time I've seen that. That's good news.
Terry Becker was talking, he was showing around the factory, and it seemed like it wasn't that busy in Q1 when you were doing your call. What's happening with actual workers, boots on the ground? How do we crank out more of these guys? And what's holding you up still, like right now?
So again, we've got a measured growth pace and plan that relates to getting the river running all the way through the organization. This is from vehicles being configured and provisioned for sale or rental or pilot or whatever, through delivery, and then all of the materials that come in to make those things go.
Right. So is there not enough materials yet? That's what I'm trying to get at. Is there for
the point of the exercise is to get that river to flow. Once the river flows, then you just start ratcheting it up and ratcheting it up. So it is that you see one little piece of the pie, and I mean today it was much more busy than
Definitely.
it was in the Q1 call. And I think part of that was Terry was on the call for that hour, and I think there were some folks who clocked out during that time. But it's also we're just getting more and more efficient at building the vehicles. So I think there is in the sort of vehicle company investor world, there is this real focus on production, but there's so many more pieces to this puzzle, and all of the pieces have to be working at the same time for the venture to efficiently move forward. And so our goal is to get the pattern really right and then start turning the crank. And
well, okay, so to your point today
I would say also,
yeah,
this is something I guided our stakeholders a year and a half ago. I said, look, we're going to have relatively flat growth, very shallow growth curve until the end of 2022, at which point we're going to start to really aim to ramp it up. And so I am glad that folks continue to be patient with us as we move through that process. But this has been, and I think I also said there's going to be a lot of chop because of the supply chain. And that chop is something that we've definitely experienced, but we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Are you still experiencing these supply chain issues right now, where you don't have enough components to build a full FUV? What is the cap here at 4
we're targeting
right
moving
now?
up to 6 a day at the beginning of
For next week.
Yeah, so it's next week.
But what is your cap? Why is it not 8 or 10? I'm just curious. Well, what is actually holding you back?
Again, it's just smoothly turning up the flow. It's
okay. So you have all the parts, you have all the people. It's more about
parts are flowing in. Those things then flow into the line, and this is at the same time that we are provisioning the new factory, moving in new big pieces of equipment, all the rest. So there's a phenomenal amount of work that goes into it beyond just what you see on the production line. And the materials team has been moving mountains to get the parts in to build, even at the rate that we have been able to do so over the last year and a half. But the hope is, and the one thing that's really kind of on my radar right now is the sort of the COVID zero policy in China and what that's doing to international shipping, because we do presently have a number of our key parts that are coming out of China. So far, it looks like things are in good shape, but this COVID has continued to be a persistent problem. We do think that, and this is you'll see this from other automakers as well, is that towards the back half of this year, folks are expecting that things are going to really ease up and start to move forward again. But there are other issues, which is we live in a geopolitically very tense time right now with the war in Ukraine, and then there's stuff that's going on in Taiwan and China, and so all of those things can certainly have an impact. Have not yet, but that is a possibility on the radar. I think for me the key is really is that one, we are the other side of this is we are pushing to get 1.x on the road, and 1.x is what we want to really build in much higher unit volume, and that's a development program that goes throughout this year and into the beginning of next.
From everything you're saying, supply chain is not an issue right now. But since you want 1.x, maybe it's not worth building more than a certain number of FUVs. So there's no point to make 20 a day right now. Is this what you're saying? Because if 1.x is in 2023, then why would I want to crank out a vehicle that is not going to be as good as the 2023 model? And it also costs more to produce. Is this what you're telling us?
The vehicles we build right now are awesome. So I have no problem getting those out into the hands of happy customers. But as we look to like sort of the big volume piece, like every vehicle that we build right now has sort of both a market building function and a consumer and cash flowing function. And so on the other side of the business is getting all of our rental operations dialed in, getting our customer experience operations dialed in, getting our fleet purchasing capabilities dialed in, so that fleets have a very turnkey solution, and making sure that we've got service in place for all of those customers so they have a very good experience. And we're lifting all of those at the same time. So I think, I've also heard a lot of pushback from people who are talking about, you got to focus on this one thing. And it's like, no, we've got many things that we've got to be able to execute in parallel and grow in parallel and improve processes in parallel. And all of that is happening simultaneously. So we've got to be a really kick-ass multi-processing company in order to really nail this problem. And once we get that dialed in, that's when we copy paste the production capabilities. That's when we are able to just open rentals all over the place, and service and so on and so forth. And that's when we just push on the throttle for scale.
So the 4 that you're building a day, where are they going? Are they going to fulfill existing pre-orders? Are they going to seed? Is it rideshare? What's the divvy there?
It is the ones I saw in the factory today were mostly headed for rental partnerships, and then we've got a bunch of consumer vehicles on the line as well. We're also we've I don't know if you guys caught the announcement with Joko. We've got I saw those vehicles in flight getting wrapped today, and as we look out this year, we're actually having to be sort of very judicious and thoughtful about where each vehicle goes in order to have maximum impact for the growth of the business in the following years, right? Because if you're a big fleet and you want to evaluate a handful of vehicles, then you get a few here, a few there, a few there. Each of those has a potential to turn into, every one could turn into a 50 vehicle purchase or a 100 vehicle purchase somewhere down the road.
Is this another pilot program where you're feeding them the vehicle to use, or they actually just purchase that vehicle outright?
It is a short-term pilot, and if they like them, it will turn into something much more.
So again, the 4 that you're building, how many of those would you say are going to customers? How many are going to fleets? How many are going to pilot programs like you just mentioned?
We haven't disclosed that breakdown.
With the pre-orders, what are the current FUV pre-order numbers or delivery to pre-order numbers? Are you seeing an increase in those?
Guys, before Mark answers that question, we just wanted to bring you to our Discord. This is where we do have people like you asking questions. We go directly to Mark with your questions. So join our Discord. Here you can ask questions for Mark. We talk about everything. Here we have Enphase, which I love. We're speaking about that. FUV, of course, and Tesla. Lots more. We have so much here. And for those people who haven't joined us on our Patreon, please join us at the fan level just if you want to support us. There are some perks. It's $4.99 only per month. But if you want to be a super fan and you just want to make it rain, $99 and $20. That's it, man. This is nothing. It's like 2 cups of coffee now, right? That's it.
Nothing. It's nothing. With the pre-orders, what are the current FUV pre-order numbers or Deliverator pre-order numbers? Are you seeing an increase in those?
Yeah, I mean, I would refer you to our 10Q filing, but I think what has been really awesome on the consumer side is bringing on Lynn Yeager. So she was really instrumental at Tesla in driving the growth in the Western region during the Model 3 ramp. She did a short stint at Electromechanica, left there, and then came to us and has been really helping dial in the process of going from sort of how do you learn about it, how do you try it, how you buy it, and making that really flow. And we're seeing the fruits of those efforts in pretty short order. So yeah, stoked. Same thing on the fleet side. We brought in Kevin O'Rourke, who was formerly with Arrow, and had been doing a lot of work on their low speed vehicle platforms with commercial customers, and particularly on the fleet management side. And I think he's brought a really sharp lens to our fleet sales process and partnerships. And I'm very excited about the potential for growth there as well. We've had this kind of many shots on goal approach to putting out various different either products or product concepts that tackle one or more areas of the market in terms of daily driving. And that has coalesced into what we think is our first shot for the win, which is the commercial delivery and fleet opportunity. So that's why we brought in Dwayne Lum, again, just storied product development lead, is our chief product officer, and he is really helping coalesce all of that 1.x effort into a single product that's going to be the first one out the gate, targeted directly at being just an awesome solution for commercial fleet, last mile delivery and utility and so on.
That was actually my whole bull case back even 2 years ago, that the Deliverator was the key to the whole. And I've talked to you about it multiple times, by the way.
Smart guy. Well, I listened. Robo Valet is 2024 and beyond, and we've been pretty clear about that. Like getting that into development, and we've got a partner in the form of Faction. That's our first autonomous and driverless vehicle partner that is developing a sensor and software stack that sits on top of the Arcimoto platform. So getting that rolling was a critical thing to do a year ago, so that years from now it will be able to be. And actually, they're moving pretty fast. But that's something that's sort of happening in parallel. When it comes to the fleet, like sort of the large numbers point of view, the Deliverator has seemed to me to always be like the first big potential for moving lots of units. The trick is there's so many chicken and egg problems in the vehicle game that you got to really weave through. It is much easier in the beginning to sell to consumers. Somebody who can say, I like that thing, I want one, here's a check, go. Whereas fleet conversations can take, a year, 2 years or more to mature. And particularly because they want to see a track record of your products on the road and have a really deep understanding of how it's going to do over its lifetime. Going consumer first with a fun utility vehicle. I mean, partly that's because the whole goal of the company was to be able to let anyone who wants to choose a truly sustainable everyday ride to be able to get one. But when it comes to kind of the sort of single order that's 100 or 1,000 or more vehicles, that's the fleet side, and you kind of have to have that other piece, the consumer piece, already chugging along to be in consideration for the much larger fleet opportunities.
How close are we to that order of 1,000 FUVs from some fleet manager? You don't have to say who, but are we getting there?
I obviously can't give you an answer to that until it's announced.
Well, can you give us an update on some of the?
I mean, if it were to be announced, if something like that were to be announced, I couldn't tell you beforehand.
But we're getting close.
Carl, what were you saying?
I'm asking for an update on the pilot programs. If the fleet is where you're really trying to ramp, it's been really quiet, and I'm curious about knowing any new pilot programs that are currently in place since the last time we've spoken, and then some updates on any of the pilot programs that have turned into actual orders.
Learned a great deal from the pilots that we have had in the field in terms of continuing to refine our offerings for fleet customers. We've gotten a lot of real miles and developed a number of relationships. And when we have announcements to make, you guys will see them at the same time everybody else does.
If you can't divulge the numbers, is it safe to assume that there is more than the 2 pilot programs that we know of?
That Domino's, that was one franchisee here in Eugene who had a deliverator for some number of weeks. I can say that just from an experience standpoint, they loved it. As far as the drivers, like when you're a pizza driver, you don't typically get people flagging you down on the street, waving at you, smiling, giving you a thumbs up, and having just a total blast as you are delivering with a smile on your face. So it was a very positive interaction. In terms of what that could potentially turn into, as far as fleet orders, we haven't announced anything yet.
Well, I'm going to throw something out there. You obviously will not answer this, but I want it to be out there. You are a connected man where you live in Eugene, Oregon. You know enough of the people there, and I believe your family was in politics. So I'm figuring you have enough connections to the city where eventually some of these pilot programs will lead to some sort of a fleet sale in the city level. And we're all just standing by as obviously retail investors, like just waiting for the day that happens, because we know that you've been talking to those people. And we've seen like the firefighter program, right? We've seen, I think, was it cops or it was just first responders, right? First responders.
Yeah, first responders. Although, I believe that the Roadster is going to be a phenomenal replacement for a police motorcycle type vehicle.
But you've had these pilot programs. So I don't know if you can say anything about the actual city you're in, because even they can order 100 vehicles, I'm sure.
Just keep staying tuned. I know you guys are interested, but as soon as we've got meaningful information to share in terms of actual real orders transforming, that you can bet we're going to talk about it.
This actually leads me to one of the other questions. Like, just from the people that I've spoken to, the people on our Discord, they are frustrated with the slow, like, sort of bleed of information. They're frustrated with the wait and see.
Guys, the other thing to consider is just that, one, this is a real long game, and we're aiming to get it right. And that means getting a lot of stuff right in parallel. And it is I have been pretty clear over the course of the last 2 years about roughly how much time that was going to take. And so I really do appreciate stakeholders' patience. I think it doesn't particularly help, the volatility in the market has not been super helpful just in terms of people's sort of emotional state. But if you looking at it from the perspective of dilution, and I challenge you guys to run the numbers between, summer of 2020 and today, in terms of if you held one share in the summer of 2020 as what percentage of the company that is, and what the percentage of the company is today, right? We've not meaningfully, largely diluted those shares, and what you have gotten in exchange for, at least as I see it, what I have gotten in exchange for very modest dilution of my slice of the pie in Arcimoto is an absolute transformation of the company and massive development of intellectual property, new factory, just kick-ass team, huge progress going forward. But I'm looking at this from a long-term view. I'm in this because I believe that the Arcimoto mission is very important, and it's what I've dedicated my life to. There are other people who hold stocks for various other reasons, on various other different time horizons. But that's why we're doing it, and that's how we're doing it. And I am very pleased with our progress.
So you mentioned dilution. I think that's not the most important thing for retail investors at this point. I think they're all worried that you don't have enough cash in the bank, which is probably around 10 million now, to fund the whole year. And I believe even in your 10Q, you said we need 35 to 45 million dollars, somewhere in that range for the whole year. So that equals around 10 million a quarter. You only have 10 million to last around a quarter. What is exactly going on with that? And that's really the real worry. It's not actually the dilution part.
I did cover this at some length on both of the last two stakeholder calls, but I can try again here.
But yeah, a little bit more detail on that because it felt like a little bit overview and not specific.
Before you answer that, I just want to piggyback something on it that's sort of a follow-up. It's what do you feel is the responsibility that you have to the current stakeholders right now in terms of that flow of information?
Thank you for bringing it back to there, because I did want to hit that. I was actually just had a conversation with a gentleman today who I am hoping we can bring on to really help us bring more transparency to our stakeholders. And actually, even the idea of doing a walking tour of the ramp and just showing, I mean, if you look at the comments people have put onto that video, they're like, thank you for showing us what's actually going on. We want to see this on a more regular basis. And so, but that came from requests from our community saying, hey, can you give us a little more insight in what's going on? So, and it started with the running tour that I did a few weeks ago. I did the walking tour with Terry and the guys today. I'm going to, in a week or so, I'm going to take everybody back to the AMP to check out what we've done there in terms of moving our new battery production facility for the new so to be able to step up production of our battery modules. We've also got some really cool new hardware that is like robotic feeders for some of the machines to, again, kind of reduce the labor costs that's going into the vehicle and improve or keep going in terms of consistency and quality. And so we talking with that is something that we actually want to make as a programmatic part, rather than once a quarter. I mean, it should be once a week, where you guys are able to see, okay, this is what happened in Arcimoto this week, because so much is happening every single day. I think we've got a lot of really cool stuff we could be talking about. And so I'm hearing that message loud and clear from all of you out there. And I think you're going to start to, well, you will continue to see that flow of information improve. And it's also not just to our investors. I mean, I got an email from a customer who is like, I put down a pre-order years ago and I've never heard from you about my pre-order, right? I got the receipt, but I haven't heard, I didn't get like even a yearly status update on it.
Same here.
I forwarded that to Lynn, and she's like, yeah, we're already on that. We're going to really tighten that up so that folks who are in kind of our customer flow are getting much more regular communication. And that's going to be true all the way through the build process of the vehicle and beyond. To me, that sort of really comes back to our focus on leadership and culture at the company and the accelerating pace of change that we have seen as a result on focusing on that fundamental foundation for teamwork and growth. If you guys are cool with it, I will share with you for the first time externally that foundational framework that we are calling the Arcimoto Way. The Arcimoto Way comprises both our values framework, the shared multidimensional yardstick by which we aim to measure every decision at Arcimoto, and sort of the agreement that we make with each other as participants in the culture. The Arcimoto core values starts with the 0th value, the fun factor. If we are having fun, it is reflected in each other. It's reflected in the products that we build. People first is value number 1. This is our commitment to health, to our growth, satisfaction of ourselves, of our customers, and ultimately of the world. Next is continuous improvement. It's continuous improvement in the direction of environmental efficiency. Value number 4 is pure esprit. A peer is someone on a level of equal standing. Esprit is the quality of being lively, vivacious, and witty. Hustle is critical. 18 players got the highest performance standards for ourselves and for each other. Planet's not waiting around, neither are we. And then resilience, sort of the final of our core values, a blend of grit and going with the flow. That makes up Arcimoto's core value set. The second piece of this is the rules of engagement. Rule number 0, take a hike. Coming to the problem with a relaxed, innovative mind. Correct the record, solve, document, execute the fix. Step forward, take the next step. You see a baton on the ground, pick it up and start running. Sing it. You put the TLDR right up at the top, outline before the essay. Repetition works. The more you repeat yourselves, you learn more what it is that you are actually trying to communicate. Keep it simple, keep it close to a home. Problems are much easier to solve when they are close to a home base. Speak problems as a solution question. If you speak a problem as a solution question, hey, how can we solve this particular problem? I've found to be a much more effective way to break through. Apply snark judiciously. If you really save it for those critical moments, makes work a whole lot more fun. And then finally, ride for the brand. And this is really just all about connecting soul and heart with work. A powerful piece about working with the Arcimoto team. It's an entire outfit that is deeply committed to the mission of the company and to the problem that we face and the solution that we're bringing. That focus on culture is what has been this just massive accelerant over the course of the last year. And I'm incredibly excited to see how that continues to grow.
Is it possible to coalesce that value set that you outlined earlier into an Arcimoto master plan? Not unlike the Elon Musk master plan. We build a vehicle that's expensive. We use that money to make another cheaper vehicle, use that money to make a cheaper vehicle.
The master plan is build above and its variants, scale them, and then scale the scaling of those. Build the pattern of the product, then build the pattern to make that pattern, and then sprout that up all over the place. It's a simpler plan.
Can you go back to answering the question I asked about before?
Stakeholder call is like, we've got a multi-pronged approach to financing, not just now, but for the foreseeable future of the company. Foundation is the ATM that we put in place with Canaccord that lets Arcimoto sell shares at the current market price whenever we think it is in the best interest of our stakeholders.
Right. Okay, so you said that, so that's happening right now, basically, as you need funding for the company, a little bit at a time.
You can look at our filings from Q1 and see in terms of both how much we sold and at what average price, and in the subsequent events after the end of the quarter and before we reported how much we sold. So we report that at the end of each quarter, on our quarterly filings. We tell you how many shares did we sell and at what average price. Again, I would say I'm fairly judicious about, I'm not and I think this is probably one of the advantages that Arcimoto has as a founder-led company, is just that, when you get a hired gun CEO coming in, there can be a tendency to just turn on the printing press in terms of shares, because that person likely does not have a substantial stake in the company. But for me, I have an intent for where I want the shares that I own of Arcimoto to go. They are all pledged to a foundation for doing good things in the world that has yet to be created, but is next up on deck. And so I'm very protective of shareholder equity for that and for other reasons. So
that makes sense. I think the worry is we want you to survive to then build the vision, obviously. So
like
that's
I said,
why I'm asking these questions, obviously. So
we can issue new share, and this is the advantage of having an ATM, is that we're not at the mercy of. I mean, if you look into some of the very toxic deal structures that pervade the microcap space, that are so-called death spiral deals, we have dodged any number of those in the early stages of being a public company, and the ATM is sort of the backstop of making sure we don't ever go down that path. And then on top of that, we now have real estate that's worth a sizable amount that we think we will be able to acquire reasonable financing for. We think we've got, and that the improvements that we're making to the real estate, the equipment that we're buying, a lot of that stuff should be, that shouldn't be paid for with cash. That should be bought with proper financing tools in place. Same thing with the fleet vehicles that we own as part of our rental operations. So some of the big cost items, and then other pieces of it, like, I mean, at the end of the day, where we want to get is where, sort of like the Dell model of vehicles, where you actually, we're able to deliver a vehicle inside of the financing window for the parts, so that we're not carrying a giant inventory load on the balance sheet and so on. And then it's, so a big chunk of our sort of future financing needs fall into those categories. And then there's a much, sort of a smaller piece that is, what is this sort of operating flow that we need in order to march up the scale curve and get to cash flow break even. And as what we've done, we have just done a whole lot of homework on painting that whole picture. And we launched what we call Project Ascent in partnership with a investment banking advisory practice called Ducera Partners. I think those guys have advised something like $750 billion in transactions.
Explain that. Project Ascent. What is that? What is that?
It's a synonym for ramp, just to get the right financing tools in place for the various pieces of the business.
All right. So those three parts are Project Ascent that you mentioned in your call.
Yeah, I mean that's what I laid out in the earnings call.
Is there going to be another round of raising from private investors that already happened? The 4.5 million that was raised.
Guys, before Mark answers that question, we want to let you know that we have our Discord. We curate a lot of the content on the channel, as well as a lot of the questions that we ask during our interviews. And it's a great place for you to post your questions. And Vitaly and I will curate them before the interview, and we'll try to ask as many of them as possible. At the same time, please consider joining our Patreon. We have 3 tiers, $4.99, $9.99, and $20. Different benefits for each. All of them have access to the Discord, where you can join the conversations on FUV and a multiple of stocks, crypto, real estate. I mean, you name it. Anything that has to do with investing, we're talking about it there. Thanks so much for watching. And now back to the interview.
Is there going to be another round of raising from private investors that already happened? The 4.5 million that was raised?
I mean, you've seen what you've seen.
Dwayne, on the last call, he said that they could offer some fleet customers lower vehicle pricing, but he never got into the specifics about how he would be able to remove some of that, the barriers of the actual cost. And I was curious if you could elaborate on what Dwayne meant.
A lot of the work that's going into 1X is cost reduction, and that's primarily on the platform foundation level, particularly in the electronics and battery. Those are the electronics, battery, motors. That's something like 60% of our bill of materials, roughly. I mean, it's a big piece of it. And so we're doing a lot of work to combine what is now many boxes and a very expensive wire harness, connecting all of it together into, basically co-packaging a lot of stuff, and then functionally co-packaging it so that when you have some piece of electronics that can do multiple jobs, getting those to be just one piece of hardware instead of 2. And we think we're going to be able to drive a lot of cost out there. So in between simplification of the platform and then also purchasing power that comes with higher volume, we think we're going to be able to make some big strides in reducing the cost to us. And the first goal from that is to get to healthy gross margins. And then over the much longer term, it would be to reduce prices for consumers.
Specifically with fleets, is this an indication that you would offer some sort of flexible financing?
That's actually something that Kevin talked about in the 10K stakeholder webinar at the end of March, which is that it really is all about having a turnkey solution for fleets and working the right relationships with the right ecosystem players to make it very easy for, because what a lot of fleets want, they don't want giant CapEx purchases of vehicles, they want OpEx monthly payments. And so having the right intermediary or intermediaries makes that a much easier adoption choice for a fleet. And so that's a big priority for us.
Financing. They would get financing and not have to buy, say, 10 of these vehicles, but have payments on them that hopefully
even for us as well, right? If we've got rental vehicles, we don't want to actually have to carry those in whole on our balance sheet. We want to be able to finance those, particularly when we think we can get that rental operation model to be a profit center. At that point, it just makes sense to finance our own vehicles through a partner, and then that way we can build more and get them out faster and grow the market faster and all the rest.
So we did talk about this on the Discord. Is this a hard thing to do, to find the financing partners who will do this for vehicles, or it's a relatively easy thing, but the hard part is to do it for fleets? Like a per vehicle basis is easy, and the fleet thing is hard.
We've got now a couple of partners on the consumer side. On the fleet side, I would just say a lot of it is, again, it's just relationship building, making sure that we've got the right product for them and for their customers, and then making sure that we can actually meet whatever demands that they might have in terms of volume and over the coming years.
So in the next 6 months or so, or at least this year, we'll have some sort of complete financing option for fleets to just order and have
Yeah, I
be
don't
done
think
this
we
year.
we haven't put any particular timeline on it, but I would suggest staying tuned.
We posted on our Discord, and some of our Discord members would submit questions that they wanted to ask for you. Clarification: if rentals is a strategic profit center, or if it's just a way to mitigate the cost of market entry, aka should we be watching rental revenue closely in the next couple of years, or is the primary purpose demand?
At a baseline, it is we want to reduce the cost to the company of the first time user experience of the vehicle. I think that's a very low bar because right now, I mean, if you think about whether it's a Tesla store or a Rivian store or a dealer franchise, it's a big chunk of cost that goes along with getting somebody to be able to try your ride. So when you actually have people paying for that privilege as customers, it's a big step up. Ultimately, what we see out there in the market, though, is that rental vehicles are actually make profitable companies all over the place. And we have the most fun rip around ride for touring beautiful places that I've ever seen. So I think once we get all of our processes figured out and dialed in, that I would like to think that will become an actual profit center for the company. The magnitude of that, is still to be determined. But I'm optimistic that we'll be able to figure that one out. I haven't given any guidance on sort of like timing or growth of that. But I think on the next quarterly stakeholder update, I intend to do that, mostly because by that time, I'm hoping that we've got a lot of the pieces figured out.
I did want to change subjects to the MLM for a second.
Yeah.
Is the MLM at this point a distraction to the main goal of getting the Deliverator ramped up and getting 7,500 vehicles out next year?
The MLM has been largely a skunkworks program that has been built in partnership with a number of external partners. So for a long time, almost nobody at Arcimoto even knew about it. It was all being developed. There were like a few people on the team, and then a lot of folks out of house. There's some guys, ex-Tesla guys, who worked on the motor system for the Model 3 that decided they didn't want to make cars anymore, and built this really cool, very lightweight e-bike drivetrain that is going to be one of the potentials for the motors and the wheels. Our partners down at Electric Goddess working on battery tech, and some other super sharp folks outside of the company. So the other thing is that ultimately we aim to have both the MLM and the FUV share a lot of the same technology foundation. And some of the next generation technology stuff is much easier to develop on a smaller scale device. There's an old adage that I learned a long time ago, which is it's easier to grind a 2-inch mirror and then a 6-inch mirror than it is to grind a 6-inch mirror. This is telescopes. And when it comes to our next generation, so for example, our cylindrical cell battery pack, the MLM battery is our test module for the FUV battery, FUV sized pack. It's a much small, it's the size that we use for passive propagation resistance. A lot of that early validation of the battery system, you don't want to do a bunch of prototypes that you're going to throw away of a full-size vehicle battery. You want to do a much smaller one. And so what this lets us do is actually utilize the efforts of all of that test module creation as an actual product. And same thing on the electronic side. So I don't see it as a distraction. I see it as, and then even on the customer side, as soon as we showed the MLM, a number of the folks that we had been talking to for fleet purchase of delivery vehicles said, we want the Deliverator and we want to replace our e-bike fleet with that thing. So we see both the commercial channel and the consumer channel through rentals as being, those are actually very synergistic instead of distractions from one another.
Well, you still need another line for the MLM. That's what I'm getting to. If you're going to still mass produce it, even if it's 700,
we could contract manufacture it. There's a bunch of different ways. I mean, building a bicycle is radically easier than building a car.
Oh, so you won't actually be building the MLM. I didn't know that.
I didn't say that. I said we could, but it would take up a lot less space. The notion of focus that I just want to hammer home again is we've got for Arcimoto to win, we've got to be very good at doing a lot of things in parallel. It's not just about producing one product on one line. It's about the entirety of the business. That is a bunch of different pieces all working together in harmony. And so adding one more much simpler vehicle product development exercise to that overall mix, particularly when it is as kick-ass as we think the MLM is going to be, to me, it was a no-brainer to move forward with it. So I appreciate that folks have, opinions about what we should or shouldn't be doing, but the MLM has been in process, on a roadmap, communicated at least even sort of at a high level to stakeholders since we acquired Tilting Motorworks at the beginning of 2021. This has not been a big mystery. It's been happening, and it's something that I'm certainly very excited about.
I had a theory that the current market conditions where money is being tightened and people are being squeezed could actually benefit Arcimoto in the sense that people that want an EV now can have an EV at a lower price point.
Oh yeah, no. When you look at times of recession, times where the pocketbook's real tight, that absolutely favors products that are very useful utility products that are not incredibly expensive.
Have you noticed that in the acceleration of pre-orders for the FUV? And the other question is the MLM siphoning orders away from the FUV in the sense that say, hey, I'd rather pre-order this thing if money is tight and there's
we've had a few customers say, I want to switch my pre-order of an FUV to a pre-order of an MLM. It hasn't been a huge number. I think it's much more additive. We're getting people who are customers of the FUV saying, I want one of those too.
Do we know what the price is going to be, the final take-home sticker price of the MLM?
We haven't announced pricing on it yet. What we've talked about is just that we're planning on having tiers. So you can, if you just look at the e-bike market, you've got,
some of those are $8,000. Some of those
premium e-bikes. Yeah, they can be 6, 8, 10 or more for a good premium e-bike. This thing is going to blow away any premium e-bike I've ever seen. And then
but for $5,000,
even in terms of cost,
so no. I mean, again, if just penny for penny, if you're spending $8,000 or $10,000 on a premium e-bike, we think we're going to have a better product in that price tier. The sweet spot, the big market mover pricing is, there is a real sweet spot in the 3 to 5 range. We want to have an offering there, and then over the longer term, the mass market pricing zone is more like in the sub 2 range, and I would see that as it's going to be a stretch to get there, but that's certainly on the target plan.
Your pre-orders of the FUV have not really gone up. In fact, they went down a little bit for quarter over quarter. Is this an issue with demand, or is this an issue with you just not advertising and pushing the product out?
To me, it's really an issue with process, in terms of really dialing in that customer acquisition and flow process through the system. And I'm excited to see how all of our work on process development impacts our pre-order queue.
Really important question. Are you voting Republican?
I am and always have been a non-affiliated voter, although I do occasionally join one of the major parties in order to vote in a primary I might care about. It's a pox on your houses.
You're not switching. You're not switching to Elon's team.
You're not following Elon.
all of my work on the political system is about fundamental voting method reform. Because what really poisons our political process is the use of plurality voting, where you only get one choice for every office. That is what creates the sort of totally bipolar political system that we have today. And it's driving a terrible wedge into this country and into the political process. So I've been working for many years now on a system called star voting, which stands for score then automatic runoff, so that instead of only being able to get one choice on the ballot, you actually get to vote 0 to 5 on every candidate.
Ranked.
And then the winner is of the two who are scored the highest, whichever one is preferred by more voters. So that if you gave one of those two finalists a 5 and one a 4, your full vote goes to the 5. It's like doing it's like doing a primary and a general election all
Yes.
in one vote, but you get much more expression, no vote splitting, no spoiler effect. And we think that that's going to have a much clearer reflection of the will of the people in terms of the outcomes of races. And I think right now, everybody should be looking at this political shit show that we've got going on, thinking we got to make some real changes. We got to make them right now.
The short sellers. I mean, this thing I think is your stock I think is 69%.
No, it's 40% officially, 40% officially shorted, and supposedly there are naked shorts happening,
Yeah,
which I think you spoke about too.
We've definitely noticed persistent, substantial trade and settlement imbalances in the stock that can be a signal that there is a substantial amount of naked shorts floating around. And that's something that we are looking into. Stay tuned.
Can you actually do anything about it? I mean, honestly, if
you can.
Tesla couldn't change the shorts, how can Arcimoto?
Well, there's a difference between, so shorting is legal. It's legal to loan out your shares to somebody who then sells them. And by the way, when you put your shares on loan, and this is a metaphor I used on the Third Row podcast the other day, is the bank in the middle is taking 50% of that fee, of that borrow fee. They're taking, it's like if you own a house and you pay a property management company 50% to rent it out, and then they go and break all the windows. It's so, it's obviously up to the individual investor if they think that that's a good move or not. And some people do and some people don't. But the naked shorting is something that we're certainly concerned about on behalf of stakeholders and the company itself. So we're taking that seriously.
Well, back in 2018, when Tesla was going through the same thing, Elon felt that he needed to send both a message to the shareholders as well as a message to the shorts. And I wanted to know if there's anything similar to that you can say either directly to the shareholders regarding this heavily shorted stock or to the short sellers themselves.
Those who, at least the comments that I've seen online from folks that are betting against the company, I see a lot of real misunderstanding about Arcimoto, about where I see our potential, about where I see our growth opportunities. And I think in the case of like what Elon said there, I think time will tell. And I'm very optimistic about our future. So, again, this is definitely a long game. It's a long run. We value all of our stakeholders who have propelled us to where we are today and are seeing us through thick and thin. So I don't have really a lot more to offer on that topic.
Has anybody in the C-level suite left Arcimoto? Because you just pointed out recently that Electromechanica lost somebody to Arcimoto. So I'm thinking it's a good sign, something you can tell us that no, people have not left, or yes, people have left.
No, actually, I mean, our C-suite has been, so when we went public, it was myself, Eric Fritz, Terry Becker, Jesse Fittipaldi, Doug Campoli, our CFO. And those guys are all still here. And then we added John Dorman, general counsel. We added Jess Jessup, our fellow. We added Lynn and Dwayne and Kevin and Dilip Sundaram, our chief international business officer. Bob Mile, we got as part of the acquisition of Tilting Motorworks, and the Trio accessory that takes a motorcycle and turns it into a kick-ass three-wheel tilting machine, not to mention the foundational technology for the mean lean machine. And all of them are still with us, rowing in the same direction. So that's another thing that we now have what I feel is really a battle-tested executive team that has gone, taken this thing from startup stage to public company to production, now to the brink of scale. And now we've augmented that crew with some real star players. And that's, another piece of what I would attribute the continued acceleration of the venture. It's been a real treat these last few weeks, now that we've got really the key roles, key seats filled, just to see how much more the things are just clicking along.
Well, that's actually good to hear that no one has actually left Arcimoto for another company. The last question I would have is that
At the executive level, we certainly had folks leave, and we've also had folks leave, and then it's like, oh, this is too much, too challenging, whatever, and then ultimately come back because it's just a great, it's a fantastic team.
I couldn't find another job.
In the research leading up to this interview, Vitaly and I were curious at the seemingly lack of insider buying right now.
We've been in a blackout through late last week. Because we are not an accelerated filer, and we're basically in a blackout in terms of employee buying and selling between the middle of December all the way through the middle of May.
Oh.
Also, okay, I did not know that. Do you offer stock options? Is stock options?
Oh yeah, everybody gets options.
2022 is almost over. I just want to hear something positive now. Give me the vision of what's going on in 2023 that makes everybody just super bullish.
Just calm down and wait it out. Yeah.
Calm down, people. Wait this out.
We're targeting tripling production from last year this year, and we're targeting 7xing from this year to next year.
7,000 vehicles next year.
That's the goal. So it's going to be a beehive of activity if things go according to plan.
I mean,
minimum 7,000. You've heard it here first.
and the new machine on the road. I think when people see what that thing's going to be all about for real, it'll be if people like it as much as I do, I think it'll be a good win.
I think we end it there. I think that was a great way to end it. I want to thank you for your time, and thanks for taking the heat. This was definitely one of
Likewise,
our.
So yeah, in the hot seat. In the hot seat.
But I appreciate
if you come to our podcast, we gotta give you some good questions, not just these fluffy.
Well, and shout out to your people on Discord. Really appreciate you guys chipping in with good questions. And one of these days, I'll pop in there with you guys and say hello.
We'll do an AMA for an hour with you.
That'd be fun. All right.
Thank you.
Guys. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mark. I think that was our most success. That was our shortest and most dense interview with Mark. We got a lot of our questions answered, and we worked on a lot of the Discord questions. If you guys enjoy that, please hit like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get notified for future interviews, and join the Discord so we can have a conversation on everything that we just heard.
Yes. Join the Patreon, please. Help support this channel and to help it keep growing.